Hey, happy Friday. Happy Digest Day. Megan Schultz here, host of Cream City Dreams podcast on Wednesdays and these small, bite-sized Cream City Digests on Fridays. I hope you're digging this season of joy, listening to all the women who are bringing joy to our city. And you know what's bringing me joy is this detox I'm on, this social media detox in the month of June. And I thought that maybe sharing my experience with this might inspire some of you to pay attention to your attention, where you put it, who you give it to, and really being more intentional about living in the present. And isn't that really what we're all just trying to do? Hey, happy Friday. I hope if you are in the Milwaukee area and listening to this, you and your house or your loved ones weren't hit hard by the flooding last weekend. Oh my goodness. We had a little bit of dampness here, but otherwise unscathed. But I know friends who have to redo basements. Thankfully, everyone is safe though. I have been talking on these Friday Digests a lot about the experience of giving up socials and what that's been like off tech and off Facebook and off Instagram. But I haven't talked a ton about what I'm doing instead, apart from the fact that I am doing things on screen instead of filling time with socials. I've been reading more news in the New York Times, reading all my Substacks word for word, as opposed to just deleting them right away. But I thought I would just tell you a little bit about what I decided to do this week. And that is I am picking up reading again, reading real books, which is a joy. And this week I'm actually rereading Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And I think this is not only inspired by the social media detox, but by the fact that I turned 50 in less than a month. And this book is the loving, gentle, but also honest nudge that I need every once in a while. So this is maybe the third or fourth time I've read the book. And whether you love Elizabeth Gilbert or she's not your style, I really enjoy the wisdom that she imparts in this Big Magic book and the idea of just facing your fears and doing the work and being creative and calling yourself a creative and giving you the permission that you need. And I thought I would just take today's digest to read a short little snippet from the first chapter of Big Magic. And the first part of Big Magic is about courage. There are 6 parts in the book: courage, enchantment, permission, persistence, trust, and divinity. And this part comes from courage. And so I just thought I would read it in case anyone else needs this reminder. She says, "Scary, scary, scary" is the subtitle. Let's talk about courage now. If you already have courage to bring forth the jewels that are hidden within you, terrific. You're probably already doing interesting things with your life and you don't need this book. Rock on. But if you don't have the courage, let's try to get you some, because creative living is a path for the brave. And I should say, much like we've been talking about all summer on the podcast, creative living does not necessarily mean you're painting or singing or writing or anything like that. It's just being alive and curious and using your gifts. So, back to the book. We all know this. And we all know that when courage dies, creativity dies with it. We all know that fear is a desolate boneyard where our dreams go to desiccate in the hot sun. This is common knowledge. Sometimes we just don't know what to do about it. Let me list for you some of the many ways in which you might be afraid to live a more creative life. You're afraid you have no talent. You're afraid you'll be rejected or criticized or ridiculed or misunderstood or, worst of all, ignored. You're afraid there's no market for your creativity and therefore no point in pursuing it. You're afraid somebody else already did it better. You're afraid everybody else already did it better. You're afraid somebody will steal your ideas, so it's safer to keep them hidden forever in the dark. You're afraid you won't be taken seriously. You're afraid your work isn't politically, emotionally, or artistically important enough to change anyone's life. You're afraid your dreams are embarrassing. You're afraid that someday you'll look back on your creative endeavors as having been a giant waste of time, effort, and money. You're afraid you don't have the right kind of discipline. You're afraid you don't have the right kind of workspace or financial freedom or empty hours in which to focus on invention or exploration. You're afraid you don't have the right kind of training or degree. You're afraid you're too fat. And in parentheses, she said, I don't know what this has to do with creativity exactly, but experience has taught me that most of us are afraid we're too fat. So let's just put that on the anxiety list for good measure. You're afraid of being exposed as a hack or a fool or a dilettante or a narcissist. You're afraid of upsetting your family with what you may reveal. You're afraid of what your peers and coworkers will say if you express your personal truth aloud. You're afraid of unleashing your innermost demons, and you really don't want to encounter your innermost demons. You're afraid your best work is behind you. You're afraid you never had any best work to begin with. You're afraid you neglected your creativity for so long that now you can never get it back. You're afraid you're too old to start. You're afraid you're too young to start. You're afraid because something went well in your life once, so obviously nothing can ever go well again. You're afraid because nothing has ever gone well in your life, so why bother trying? You're afraid of being a one-hit wonder. You're afraid of being a no-hit wonder. ... Listen, I don't have all day here, so I'm not going to keep listing fears. It's a bottomless list, and anyhow, it's a depressing one. I'll just wrap up my summary this way. Scary, scary, scary. Everything is so goddamn scary. And I don't know about you listeners, but I can relate to a lot of those. Absolutely. That fear of anything and everything, the little things, the big things, the silly things, the ridiculous things, the important things. Yep, I can relate. Can you? Were there any that rung true for you? And yet, that only takes up 2 pages of the first chapter of the book. And there's so much more to encourage us to move beyond our fear, to sit with our fear, to allow it space, which is what she talks about in the next chapter, but to say, fear, I see you, you're with me, but you don't get to be in the driver's seat. Which is a really nice analogy for a road trip as well. So I just thought I would share that because I feel like I'm always asking on this podcast, listeners, what are you moving toward? What is your Cream City dream? And sometimes I think before we get to our dreams, we have to face those fears and look them dead in the eye and then ask them to get out of the way so we can live those dreams. So that's all I got this week. I hope you'll join me in doing that yourself. I know I'm working on that over here. I will be back next week. One last episode with Tekla Brumder Ross. She is wrapping up the season with me as we evaluate our summer off the socials. Our social media detox. We're wrapping that season up. So hope you'll join us for one last conversation, at least for now. I expect we'll be back. Until then, Milwaukee, keep on dreaming.